The living room lights were still on when I walked in, expecting a quiet evening. Instead, my mother stood in the center of the room, holding my academic documents, certificates, transcripts, proof of every sacrifice I had made. Without hesitation, she tore them apart, pages floating like confetti from a nightmare. Her voice shook the walls as she yelled, "You're killing your brother." My father stepped forward, not to intervene, but to add flame to the fire. His eyes carried disappointment, and his words landed like a blow. "You are our biggest regret." The room fell silent, as if the house itself disapproved of my existence. I had come home seeking rest, but they treated me like a threat. That night, something inside me shifted forever. The next morning, my phone rang before the sun cleared the horizon. My father didn't greet me. He issued a demand. He said I owed them money for family responsibilities I never agreed to. According to him, every achievement I earned was theirs to claim, every paycheck already spent in their minds. He insisted I pay for my brother's treatment, accusing me of selfishness when I hesitated. My mother grabbed the phone and cried as if I had personally destroyed their dreams. Their words weren't requests, they were weapons. I hung up trembling, not from fear, but from the realization that I wasn't their child anymore. I was an account to withdraw from, a resource they believed existed solely to repair their decisions. My identity had become currency. They invited me to dinner as if nothing had happened. My father sat at the head of the table, my mother beside him, and my brother glaring at me as though I carried invisible guilt. The food had no taste, the words did. They spoke of sacrifices I supposedly never made, expenses I allegedly ignored, and responsibilities I had abandoned. Every accusation came polished and rehearsed, like a speech they had practiced. When I tried explaining my own struggles, they dismissed my words with scoffs. My mother slammed her fork and said, "You only think about yourself." The guests nodded without context, turning dinner into judgment. I left with an echo in my mind. Not of their voices, but of my own silence finally breaking inside me. The next day, my phone exploded with messages. My parents had spread their version of events, painting me as ungrateful and irresponsible. Aunts and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly became experts on my life. Texts arrived in waves, each one demanding explanations or apologies for sins I never committed. Screenshots of my achievements were twisted into reasons I owed the family more. They didn't ask what happened, they had already chosen their villain. I stared at the messages, realizing no truth could survive in a space where emotion replaced logic. I left the group without a word. For the first time, I wasn't defending myself. I was stepping out of a cage I didn't build. Their narrative didn't define me anymore. They showed up at my house unannounced, carrying documents and expectations. My father pushed a folder toward me, filled with forms requiring my signature for loans I didn't request. My mother acted wounded when I refused, claiming I was abandoning the family in their moment of need. But their eyes betrayed something else, calculation, not desperation. They didn't want help, they wanted ownership of my future. When I asked why my brother couldn't sign, they exchanged glances, confirming everything I suspected. This wasn't about illness or duty. It was about control. I closed the door and felt something unfamiliar, relief. I finally understood. I wasn't failing them. I was refusing to be used. And that decision terrified them more than any illness ever could. They arranged a family intervention, calling it a conversation. It was a trial disguised as concern. My father listed every moment he claimed I disappointed them, while my mother cried loudly enough to drown reason. My brother sat silently, arms crossed, enjoying the spectacle. When I spoke, they interrupted, twisting my words into proof of selfishness. Every sentence felt like walking into a trap designed long before I arrived. They didn't seek truth, they sought compliance. I watched their faces and realized something heartbreaking. They loved who I used to be when I obeyed, not who I became once I grew independent. I stood up, thanked them for the lesson, and walked away. That day, I learned that shared blood doesn't guarantee shared respect. I decided to protect myself the only way they respected legally. I gathered every message, every recording, every document proving I never agreed to financial responsibility or emotional burden. I met with a lawyer who listened without judgment, and for the first time, someone saw the full picture. He drafted a letter stating I was not liable for debts, treatments, or imagined obligations. When my parents received it, their tone changed instantly. Their confidence cracked. They called repeatedly, but I didn't answer. My silence wasn't revenge, it was recovery. I wasn't cutting ties, I was building boundaries. The letter didn't just protect me. It revealed who they had become without my compliance. And that truth was a mirror they couldn't shatter. Weeks later, they tried one last attempt. They arrived demanding a conversation, hoping guilt would reopen the door. But something was different. I wasn't afraid anymore. I handed them a copy of the legal notice and asked a simple question. What do you want from me that isn't mine to give? They had no answer, only stunned silence. My father looked smaller, my mother speechless, and my brother suddenly uninterested. The empire they built on obligation collapsed. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I simply refused to carry a burden that wasn't mine. As they walked away, I felt nothing, no hatred, no relief, just closure. They didn't lose me. They lost control. And sometimes that is the only justice life provides.